There we go. I think I'm going first, right? Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm on the 70 show again.
Welcome to Slow and Steady, the podcast where you get to follow along as we build products in public. Each episode gives you an honest peek into our lives as we share our struggles, our wins, and everything in between. I'm Benedict and I'm feeling busy.
And I'm Benedicta. Today is February 18th. This is episode number 217, and I'm feeling joyful.
Ooh,
I
joyful.
looked,
That's nice.
I
That's
looked at
better
the
than
feelings
busy.
wheel. I was like, happy felt a little too broad. No, I mean, I'm well rested. I can sit for almost a full workday again.
Nice.
I've been socializing. The sun is out, and if you're watching the
True.
stream or the recording, like the sun is coming through the window. So just realizing that my life is pretty darn good.
Nice. Yeah, the weather
So
is nice around here as well. It's just
yeah,
freaking cold, but the sun's out as well, and that's kind of nice. Yeah, that's lifting the spirits.
exactly.
But today I'm not going to get out much because Jane
You're
isn't
big.
feeling too well this week, and I'm filling in on demos and stuff like that. So
Mm.
hence why we rescheduled this, because I have to be on other calls later today.
So you're gonna feel busy because you're gonna be on calls and not getting into the
Hmm.
focused work of coding.
Exactly. Well, there's still some coding happening on top
Mhm.
of that, but yeah,
Okay.
like as I said, like busy. There's a lot of things going on, and a lot of things to juggle, but should be fine. I mean, it's been a while since I did demo calls, but yeah, I mean, I wing it, I guess.
You know the product pretty well at this time, at this point.
Yes, I know the product pretty well, but that's not always
Mm.
a good starting point for those demos, because like if you start to explain the product, you probably already lost them, because it's not so
Mm.
much about the product. Like, yes, it's a demo, and yes, they kind of want to see stuff, but it's like not a course, right? They're not like lecturing them on the features. It's like more like showing them just the little things they like, or the broad things even, that are useful to them, and nothing else.
Yeah. Oh, that's good. So how I was just thinking because another reason things are I'm just feeling more light, I guess, is also because the support load has gone down a lot. I feel like January is a big month for us in terms of new customers coming in, very like new. It's often the first time they
Hmm.
explore it, like some type of in the new year I will start this business, and then they're testing out Seta. So I realized just like the last week, the support load on me, at least like the technical support has gone down. And I finally got this article out on WeWeb plus Outseta, which is kind of like one of the first guides I made for Outseta was a guide on WeWeb and Outseta. But then because that's almost 2 years ago, I realized, I took the engineering approach on that one.
Hmm.
Because I was like, if you're using WeWeb, which is a no-code app builder, I kind of assumed that the people using it knew WeWeb. So they wanted to do it like the WeWeb way, but that is not the case. Like they just want the fastest way to get some authentication on their WeWeb app without
Hmm.
Seta. So I kind of came up with a new approach that has been like simmering in my brain where I can give them that, and then I give them an expansion article on how to do it more WeWebby, and then a
Hmm.
third one that is even more WeWebby, so they can get started really fast, but in a way that isn't hindering that expansion, because you can do it in a
Right.
way that makes that expansion harder. So I was really pleased, but it's been like such a like when it finally landed, the three articles that I'm gonna write, I've written two. When it finally landed, how the structure could be between those three, like boom, it was out. Like got a little help from AI and all of that. It was just like it went fairly fast, but it was just like such a slow labor, I guess we call
Hmm.
it, where it's like I just like and I sat down to write it several times and it's just like, it's not like this is not coming together. So that was just like, I got it out, I guess last week, and then I did the expansion yesterday. It was just like, Oh, finally. And then the third expansion is basically the second expansion just for another technologies. It's will be fairly fast. But that also just like, oh, the support load lifted. I got those articles out. It just like feels like progress, I guess.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had some like for us support is a little bit weird lately. It feels like it's different from week to week. Like some weeks it's pretty noisy and busy, and but I guess last week was pretty quiet. So it's like I currently don't see a pattern. It's just like weird, I guess.
I guess for us it goes like up and down, but January is like historically pretty high for us.
Right. Yeah. I can see that. Makes sense. Yeah.
Because I think our customers are more in that like starting a business phase than your customers.
Right.
And
Yeah.
somehow that is usually a nearest a resolution type of thing.
Right. Yeah. We had some churn in January, like not necessarily triggered by the fact that it's January. I think they made the decision to migrate elsewhere before that, but like we had a couple customers cancel, which is obviously a bummer. And specifically, one of our customers canceled, and it turned out they were hard to come up with the correct numbers, but it feels like they were using at least half of our infrastructure resources. So when they left, you can see that CPU memory usage on everything just like dropped from like, I don't know, 60, 70, 80% to like 10. And it's crazy. Like when they canceled, we're obviously deleting their data, and I think that one customer had like 40% of our database storage covered. Like,
Was that because they were sending so many events, or they were sending events with a lot of data?
they were sending so many events. They were really sending a lot of events,
Like
and
every click on every button and every scroll and everything.
nah, it was like more like they did some counting of things on a schedule. And instead of like just updating the user with the account, they would send an event for every time they counted something. And that was just a ton of data. And they kept counting and counting and counting and sending those updates. And different types of counts. And I don't know, like it was just a ton of data. And it just like a ton of updates. And they were also the ones apparently who would dump like all their data at midnight. Like on top of sending data all the time, they would also just like dump it all into a system.
We have
at
some who do
midnight.
Monday morning. Like if
And
there are issues, it's Monday morning because
right,
there is some customer, or I think like one in particular, doing
I
a
used
lot
to
of
be
stuff.
able to like just look at the charts without like labels on the axes and just be able to like, yeah, this is Monday, Tuesday, and so on, because like at midnight there were spikes and you could see like spikes, like different height and spikes. If it's a weekend, so it was like Monday to Friday was like super high, and then Saturday, Sunday was like a little bit lower, and then super high again. So yeah, but that's gone now. Oh, actually, I haven't checked. Maybe it's still visible, but definitely not as much as when they were still a customer. And as a result of that, like I think I spent a Saturday just like deleting all of their data from our system, and then for the first time ever, I used a tool called PG Squeeze to just like compact the entire database. So we went from a terabyte or something to like half of it, more or less.
Nice.
Just by defragmenting the disk space, basically. And afterwards, we were able to downgrade the server, so we're now like saving more money than what they were paying us.
I feel like this is an article. Didn't you say you wanted to blog more about like the technical stuff of the business?
Maybe,
This is an
yeah.
article.
Like I started collecting more ideas, and I'm not sure. Did I add this? Let me see.
I don't remember when you were talking about it, but it was a
Yeah,
sometime you were talking about writing more, and I feel like these are the topics that nobody writes about, because when you do these things, that's when your business is
right.
busy.
Yeah,
So that kind of information sharing is like when you get into the trickier problems where you actually need more information sharing from like similar types of businesses,
right.
that is not like, infringing on trade secrets and stuff like that. That's when people stop sharing, because you often don't have the time. And it also maybe sometimes, like, this would probably be a pretty short article, but an important one.
Yeah, that's a
It's
good
more like a
point.
tip.
Yeah.
It's a tip of, like, we use this, and like, you can make a clickbaity title without it being clickbait, because it's actually what happened. Like, I spent a Saturday with this tool. Our cloud bills are down 50%. It's and it wouldn't
Yeah,
be
yeah,
and it wouldn't be a
yeah.
lie. It would just be a true clickbaity article or tweet or whatever.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. I've been keeping notes about topics, and obviously, as usual, like just keeping notes and not gotten into actually writing anything. But at least I got a list of possible topics. So
Mhm.
maybe when inspiration strikes, I'll sit down and write one of those. And I guess the other thing is keeping them small. Like usually when you think about writing something, it's like a book that you imagine, and I think you have to let go of that and just like, even if it's just a couple hundred words, that's probably good enough.
And especially if it's super helpful. Like, you rather want like short, helpful articles or blog
Yeah,
posts or tips of the trade than a long, long article on some obscure thing that is not relevant to your
true,
business at
true.
all. Even though it's interesting from like a geeky point of view, it might not like be valuable or applicable for other people. But this
Yeah,
sounds like a
yeah.
very applicable thing.
Maybe, yeah, who knows?
Mm. Did you get anything else then on the product in these 2 weeks?
um I think last time I mentioned we were working on company triggers for nodes like teleports and wait untils and stuff like that. That stuff is done. It's shipped. Um, the feature in
Nice.
general is still behind the feature flag, but yeah, like we're getting closer to be able to just release it because it can support everything we need. So that's exciting. And I think I also mentioned that we're working on a transactional messages API.
Mhm.
So they can just like send one-off messages to users. And we ship that as well. It's also behind the feature flag, and the UI still needs a little bit of like polish
Mhm.
and tweaks. But it's pretty like in terms of effort, it wasn't that big of a feature, but in terms of like product completeness, I think it's a
Mhm.
big thing, because then I think we cover almost everything that you could possibly need for your SaaS email needs. So we're excited to be pushing on this and like hopefully shipping it sometime soon.
I have some questions
And
about the feature. Is it only through the APIs, or through like triggers that would send transactional emails, or could I go in and say I want to send one email to Benedicta?
it's the latter. Like it's a dedicated API endpoint, and you basically like there's multiple ways to use it. Like either you say something like I want to send an email to Benedicta, and the subject line is this and the body is this, and use this design and I don't know these settings, and then send it out. And then the UI part of it is that we allow you to basically define templates of sorts, like
Mhm.
where you specify the content and the subject and
Mm.
stuff like that. And then you're like just sending to the API, hey, use this template with this data and send it to that person. And that way, it should be relatively simple to like move stuff like, I don't know, password reset emails and stuff like that out of your app
Mhm.
and inside
Mhm.
user list. And
Mhm.
then you just like customize it with some placeholders, and that allows a couple of things, I guess. Like for one, you get like open and click tracking for your transactional emails. That's stuff you usually don't get unless you use a provider that backfills that stuff. And this way, you can also like have a unified design language across all your emails, because then you're just using our themes and everything, which should save people a lot of headaches of like having to unify different ways of rendering emails to look the same and stuff like that. So we're
Because
pretty excited about it.
Because what we see at Outseta is that we obviously have transactional emails for the things that we control, like password reset and
Right.
account and all of that stuff. And then we also have help desk, where if somebody sends in a message, you can start a conversation. But what people want now is to be able to initiate that conversation.
Right.
So that's like a little hole in the suite or in the functionality. And I would assume at some point you're going to get the same question where, oh, I want to send a one-off email with things from their account within that design language, but I want to do it from the UI. Like some weird case, you want to message that one customer or the people of that one organization. And now that you have the API, I guess you could drop in the UI for that and have that be possible.
Maybe, yeah. So far we have been avoiding that, mostly because we feel like once you start sending messages from the UI, you also want to receive messages in the UI.
And we have that already with the help desk. Yeah.
Because then effectively it becomes a help desk tool.
Yeah.
So we are
but I don't think that's necessarily the case, because sometimes you want to send out what seems like a templated thing, but you want to send it as a one-off or to 2 or 3 people, maybe send like a demo code or something. You want it to look like it's coming from the system, but you just want to do it manually and you don't want to talk to a developer to do it. And then the reply address could be the regular help desk address.
I mean,
but it would
could
still
do some stuff like that with our broadcast feature already, like especially if you're sending just to a handful.
Yeah.
Like it's not necessarily a one-to-one, but in a theory, there's nothing stopping you from
sending
a broadcast to just one person. Like you can,
and it's the same thing on Outseta. You could set up a segment with one person and then send one broadcast to one person. I mean, it's possible. It just doesn't feel the same. And I guess for our users, obviously they often want to then be able to start that help desk conversation. So it's a little bit of a different use case.
Right. Can you just like create a new help desk conversation with recipient, or is like your help desk tool just for replying?
So I can choose a person and kind of like write a help desk request for them, so it looks like it's coming from them, and then replying to that. So if somebody called me and said blah 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 blah, then I could put that in on their person, and then that starts a help desk conversation. But I don't think I guess they would get that first message, but that would be like the start of a help desk thread email. You know, we have more of a help desk email where you see all the email or all the help desk, the whole conversation in the email you receive. But it's not, it starts a help desk thread. So when the person receives that, it's like, this is a help desk thread, but people want to send off a message and just be like, hey, something, and then, you know, get the replies without it being branded as a help desk when the person receives it. So we have all the pieces. It's just a matter of prioritizing and changing the UI for that kind of specific case.
I guess we could do most of this as well. It's just like, as you said, like a matter of like building UI for that and surfacing it. And
is it part of the CRM? Is it part of help desk? Is it part of like broadcast emails? Like where does it fit? All of the things that will come from that. Suddenly people want replies, like you said, and like we could do that, but only in help desk. So do we have a different sort of reply? It opens up a lot of
for
possible requests. But I think it's going to be there in the future, because right before we got on, we see a lot of people wanting to move from HubSpot to Outseta because we are cheaper, but we don't fully support all of their features. And one of their features is that in their like CRM product, you can send you can have email. It's basically email. You can have like regular email back and forth within the HubSpot UI, where it feels like more like an email inbox. So I would guess as more people are looking to Outseta, that's like a feature that they might want to replicate from HubSpot if they are to choose us. But right now we're in the do we want to cater to these people or do we not want to cater to these people? But that's a product discussion.
Yeah. The other thing we started noticing, like now with like another like category of content to manage in the UI, is that our UI layout is starting to show cracks. Like we haven't really redesigned anything UI wise. We had like a small like color
Tweak.
refresh sort of color tweaking a couple years ago by now, but like the layout itself didn't really change, and now it's becoming obvious that like we kept tacking things on and on and on and on, and it's showing cracks, and I think it's ripe for a redesign. And we're like kind of like on the fence of like how much of a redesign this should be, right? Because there's some value in like reorganizing stuff and like probably rearranging the layout. Like right now we have like top navigation, and I guess we're moving to a sidebar navigation just
Mhm.
because it's
More
easier to
space.
browse, more space, right? But then the question is like how much else do we do with that refresh, right? Because there's the layout change is probably necessary, but everything else is kind of the cherry on top, and maybe a waste of time. But then again, getting a fresh coat of paint wouldn't hurt either. At least that's what we're telling ourselves, I guess. But is it worth the time and effort to do this? And will customers actually care? That's the hard part about it, I guess.
I think doing those kinds of projects, it's not that I've done it, but like from what I've heard and stuff, I think like the important thing is time boxing those kinds of projects, because a redesign project
Yeah,
is one of those projects that are very hard to define, and they can just like go on forever and you never really replace what you have. And then you end up with this like redesign, but then you've also done like something has happened to the product that wasn't a part of the
right.
redesign. And so you have to be very mindful of like doing it in chunks that make sense, even though it would have been easier to do it in one go. You need to realize that that one go is never gonna
Never going to happen.
happen.
Yeah,
Like that's
yeah,
never gonna be never gonna be a time where you have the time to do that in one go in 2 weeks. Like that's not gonna happen. So having distinct chunks that can actually be pushed to production and make sense along the way, I think is super important, because otherwise, I realize I am talking a little bit from experience, but I can't can't say too much about it. But I've worked on projects where the redesign is still only available to the people developing 2 years after the redesign started. And
right. Yeah,
and and it gives you a sense of completion that you've made something, but it's never reached a customer. So it's like it has not been made. It's it's this false sense of like we're working on this very nice looking product, but then our customers are not seeing that.
yeah,
But since we're seeing it every day, it feels like it's done, or like that's what the customer is experiencing, but they're not. So
yep.
yeah, so you don't want to be there 2 years down the road
No,
with
no,
like
no,
a
no, no.
nice
Like
redesign that at some point was going to be pushed to the production side.
no, like if anything, this should be a couple weeks and not more, because
Mhm.
everything else is probably most definitely a waste of time.
But I also
And
think
we
if you
even
like if you
go
just
ahead.
like think a little bit more creatively, there is ways to do it where okay, in 1 year we want to be there, but we can do the
Yeah,
sidebar navigation, and then
yeah,
people get used to that, and then you do the other thing, and then you do the other
yep,
thing, both not to overload the user, but also so that you make sure you get it into production.
yep.
But it feels I get antsy because like, but I know what like I know what I want down like down there. Like, why
Yep.
don't we just like do that? And it's like, well, there's you have to maintain the business, and you have to,
Mm-hmm.
there's
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah.
So we should, yeah, like it's not on the roadmap just yet, but it's going to be on the roadmap soon, I guess. And I think Jane already started designing a little bit, and I want to spend some time coming up with a suggestion as well, and then we have some back and forth to like at least have a vision, and then let's see how we get from where we are today to where we need to
To
be,
the
I guess.
vision.
Yeah.
It's so
The
hard,
visual
both in
vision.
life and in product development.
Right.
The discrepancy between the vision and where
Yeah.
you're at. Mm. Yeah.
The other exciting thing that has been happening over the past 2 weeks is our customer support engineer Mia has been dabbling with building a Make integration, and like it's been on the list of things we want to do for the past, I don't know, 6 years, 5 years, something like that, and we never got around to it. And I figured this is a good standalone project for her to work on, and she has been doing that for the past 3 weeks, 4 weeks, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I had no clue on how any of this would work. Wasn't even able to find the documentation. And she managed to figure it out, and we have a prototype version currently in the works. And if things go well, I think we can publish something, or at least submit something for review by the end of the week, maybe early next week. And in that process, she not only worked on the integration on the Make side of things, but also made some changes to the backend side of things in Userlist, to the Rails code, and she got her first commit into the backend. So
So you have a
that's
support
thing to
engineer,
celebrate.
actually. Not a
Yeah, we're
support
calling it
person.
support engineer, because
Mhm.
I guess that's also what we hired for. Like,
Yeah.
it's not necessarily meant to. Well, now she's committing in the backend,
Mhm.
but it was never really meant to be that. But like all our support requests are, I mean, I guess similar to yours,
Mhm.
are usually super technical and like involve a lot of moving pieces and some, like, to fully understand what's going on, and sometimes be able to explain to the customer what they don't get,
Mhm.
is having that like engineering mindset of like that technical understanding of how systems work, and timing and APIs and concurrency and stuff like that. So we're specifically hiring for customer support engineer.
Yeah.
And
I guess that's kind of what
yeah.
my role is, more than like dev role, which is what it was initially. It is support engineering, and I also create integrations.
Yeah, it sounds very similar. Yes.
So
Yep.
Mia and I should start our own little association of email support engineers.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
Because
why
we also
not?
have a Make integration, and the Make people we don't have it. Make made it way back when,
Mhm.
so we didn't have any control really over the Make integration. And I've been like looking through like how can we get some more control over that, because just like for one thing, they chose our old yellow as like the accent color, and so all of the labels are like white on yellow. So
Ooh,
it's,
yeah, that's not good.
and it's like we didn't choose this, so or I thought we had control, and then I was like, this is an issue. And then our designer, who's also becoming an design engineer, I guess, because he's doing more and more on the product to like, make it nicer. He was like, oh, I could maybe fix that. And then we realized we don't have control over this. And then the week after, 2 weeks after, a support request comes in through our support at Atsera from Make, being like, oh, we would rather people had control over their own integrations. Do you want control over your own integration? So we're looking into that to like take ownership of the integration, so that we can develop it when new features arrive and change that color, so we don't get flack for having such like low contrast
Yeah.
accessibility in our Make integration. And I think it's one of our most used, because we do have control over Zapier, so we've made the Zapier integration. And it would be interesting to see the numbers. Like, I don't think we even see the numbers for Make now, or if we ever will, I don't know. But it's interesting to see like the usage, like how much is it used,
Yeah.
like how many of our customers are using Make versus Zapier. Like that's interesting in terms of what type of articles and content we want to put out. So yeah, we're also doing Make stuff. Me and Mia.
Yeah. Yeah. It's very, very interesting. Like, it's just a lot of JSON files.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, you can manage that stuff in the UI, but there's also a VS Code integration that, in the end, probably just like calls the API, downloads the stuff, and
Mhm.
writes them to your disk. And it's been an experience just working with this.
Make is a different. I haven't done the integration stuff at all, but just Make is a very different way of thinking than Zapier when you're using it. It just like talks to two different brain types. And it took me a while to get used to Make. And now that I do, because in my work at the first engineer, I guess, used to Make extensively. And it took me a while to get used to it because we don't just, rewrite things in new languages just because. The same thing with things such as Make. But when I got used to it, it's super powerful and it's very visual in how the flows are displayed and stuff. But there are some hiccups. But the ones, I think some of our emails are actually done through Make, and it's chugging along. I haven't touched it. The workshop reminders are being sent. I don't know how, but it keeps on working.
It works.
It works. I'm not even opening the Make scenario. I'm staying away from that.
Right. It makes sense.
Just like, do not touch. But before we wrap up, I need to make like a public promise so that I do it, because I've been enjoying myself a little too much over the last couple of weeks, recharging after my horrendous start to the year. But by the time this podcast episode goes live, I will have published Galleon.tools. So we can have that in the description. It will not be the full script. It will be a demo, at least some kind of like demo of what it will be, and a tiny explanation and an email sign-up form to like get the ball rolling.
I'm looking forward to checking it out.
Yeah. So Ola my partner has done most of the work. So I'm just going to like clean it up so it becomes exactly like I wanted and then publish. It's not that much work. I just need to not enjoy the sun or read books or hang out with friends and do it.
Nice.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to talk about?
The only thing is I'm reading Why We Sleep, and I become an obnoxious person who talks about it at any social gathering. So I won't say anything more, but read it. And thank you, Monica Lent, for like convincing me. I was like, I know a lot about sleep. Like, I don't need to read that. It's fine. It is mind-blowing. That's what I can say.
It's one of those books on my list, and I think someone gifted it to me a while ago, but I still haven't read it.
Read it.
Yeah, probably. Well, cool. Then I guess that wraps it up for this week, or these 2 weeks. So talk to you soon.
See you around the interwebs.
Bye.
Bye.